Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nandita Sintiariani from Class B, and here I will be presenting my presentation for the mid-exam of the poem and poetry study. The contents are introduction to the poem, classification of the poem, aesthetic and poetic experience, and the last one will be semantic phenomenon or figurative language. So, the poem that I chose is called Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? Or Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare, and this is the poem. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometimes to hold the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by change on nature's changing course and trimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death break thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as man can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Next is the classification of the poem. This poem is a lyric poem, which is a sonnet poem. Precisely is written in typical Elizabethan or Shakespearean sonnet format. The form of this poem is closed or fixed form because it has its own format and rules. This poem has 14 lines of iambic pentameter with a rhymed couplet at the end, and the rhyme scheme is ABAB, CDCD, EFEF, GG. In addition, this poem is a love poem that's talking about the writer's love for his lover. Through this poem, he compares his lover to a summer's day. Then, I was talking about the aesthetics and poetic experience. I have found aesthetics in this poem, just from the way the writer compares his lover with the summer. I think it is already described as an aesthetic. If this poem is examined further, I believe it has the aesthetic that relates to reality in real life, especially from these lines, which are the 7th and the 8th line. And every fair from fair sometime declines, by change or nature's changing course and trimmed. It said that all beautiful things will inevitably fade away, either naturally or as a result of natural cycles, and I agree with that, because everything in this world will be disappear through the time. I also found that the following lines were so beautiful and endearing. From these lines, I see that the writer wrote about his lover. He said that his lover is eternal, whose beauty will never fade, and that as long as humans are alive in this world, they can see his lover's beauty through this poem. That sentence melts my heart and makes me feel the writer's genuine love expression at that time. Therefore, those are the aesthetic and poetic experience that I can found. The next point is semantic phenomenon or figurative language. There are several figurative language in this poem that I found. The first one is metaphor. I just put the fragment of the poem in here, but I will explain why these lines are metaphor. So let's take a look at the very first line, which is, Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? This sentence establishes the metaphor for the entire poem, in which the writer compares the woman he loves to a summer's day. There's another metaphor in the 5th and 6th line. Sometimes to hold the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. The metaphor in these lines compares the sun to the eye of heaven. The brilliance or luminosity of the sun is emphasized in this figurative language. And the last one is from line 9. But thy eternal summer shall not fade. This metaphor implies that his love will always be young to him, that she radiates an endless radiance and vitality. Apart from metaphor, there is also an element of personification and imagery in this poem. We can take a look at the line, Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. That sentence gives human qualities to inanimate objects and make the readers perceive things through the senses. Moreover, if we look at the poem, it was written in Old English language, so we may find an unfamiliar word such as thou, the, and apostrophe st. The meaning of thou, thee, and thee with the spelling thy is you. Thou is a subject form, thee is an object form, and the second thee is a possessive form. Meanwhile, the apostrophe st conjugation is a very old term for you currently have. That's all from me. Thank you.